by activities in the agricultural sector with imports that are needed to satisfy the changing diets, mostly in urban and peri-urban areas. Currently, our food system mainly includes the production and consumption of maize, rice, roots, tubers, legumes, vegetables, livestock, and freshwater fish products, which already respond to the recommended 6 nutritional food groups. Despite having these products in our food basket, our national conversations on food system have clearly shown that dependence on maize, low dietary diversity, lack of food safety standards, limited investments in other sectors such as livestock and focus on production as some of the challenges that are very our food agenda. Recently, these have been worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic and greatly compromising the already vulnerable food system in Malawi. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure these issues are not only for us here in Malawi, but similar across the regional and continental food objectives. Yes, with the Affordable Inputs Program, AIP, Malawi has managed to maintain high levels of maize production. However, our vulnerability lies with the climate change, land pressure, low diversity, and low maize productivity. This is indeed the right time for policy action. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, despite the current situation, opportunities to sustain the food systems exist within the country and in the region. Hello. As already indicated, the country has increased maize production through AIP, thereby ensuring the basic food requirements at the household level. This shows that political will can further drive policy actions required to sustain the food system in Malawi. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, apart from policy support, Malawi is blessed with different agroecological zones. This diversity brings opportunity for diversified agricultural enterprises that are required to improve the food system. This diversity also comes with a lot of indigenous food that can enhance our food basket. This is why we continue to engage universities and research institutions on the need to develop technologies along the value chains, adapt and disseminate research outcomes for policy action. Knowing that we now have an opportunity to enhance our local efforts with global efforts by having a seat at the UN summit table, these dialogues are timely. As a country, we will now align our food goals to the Malawi 2063 development agenda, so that we are able to meet the aspirations of our people. The availability of experts from farm association and ongoing research are some of the enablers that have the potential to address the current and future challenges affecting our food system. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, realizing these opportunities, Malawi is among the few countries that are now conducting the food system dialogues to advance a national agenda. You may wish to know that on 19th May 2021, I facilitated a national food systems dialogue that involved different stakeholders. I'm pleased to report that as a country, we are now going to have regional and district dialogues to enrich our contribution to the UN Food Systems Summit slated for September 2021. His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Makache, President of the Republic of Malawi, has championed this to facilitate joint effort among different stakeholders, including universities. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, my ministry, which is facilitating and collaborating with stakeholders on these dialogues, recognizes that achieving more inclusive and competitive food systems requires synergies and trade-offs. Preliminary outcomes of the dialogue show that Malawi is interested in promoting diversification, production, and consumption of indigenous food, promoting infrastructure development and strengthening coordination and policy coherence. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, if we are to sustain production throughout the year, Malawi needs heavy investments in irrigation and marketing infrastructure. Improving road network and digital connection is also our priority if we are to overcome the land challenge. Our intention is not to be on the receiving end in these investments, but to collaborate and partner with financial friendly conditions and competitive and fair trade. This is the way to go for us. In conclusion, Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that with such support, Malawi can promote research, technology generation, and dissemination. This will not only sustain the current food system, but will also develop new food systems that heavily include our indigenous foods. With growing and youthful population, we have an opportunity to develop our food systems in Malawi. Thank you so much. God bless you. Is it about Adibara Akwam to give us background to the Food System Summit 2021 and the National Regional Convention Dialogues. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, all ministers present, distinguished speakers, all participants. As a network of African universities, we are very, very humble that you ministers and Your Excellency Commissioner Sakon and our development partners accepted to come and participate in this dialogue. Without doing further ado, allow me to share my slide for introducing this session. Your Excellencies, we are gathered here to gain insights from the policy leaders from various parts of the continent. The meeting has been convened by African universities so that they could engage with policymakers and pass out the voice and the messages that they have gathered through various dialogues that they have held at country level, at sub-regional level, and at global level, so that we can communicate some of these messages to you, honorable ministers, and the leadership at African Union Commission and our development partners. But let me briefly introduce ReForum. ReForum, the Regional Forum for Regional Universities Forum for Capacity Building in Agriculture, is a network that was founded in 2004 by African vice chancellors. It was a response to the decision by the African heads of states when they met in Maputo and decided to launch the comprehensive African agricultural development program. So the issue was that as universities, how do we contribute to the agenda agreed upon by our heads of states? So the 10 vice chancellors then agreed that we needed to create a platform for networking the universities so that they can work collaboratively together to support resource mobilization for higher education in Africa, and also to undertake advocacy and seek partnership for transforming African universities for relevance and for active participation in inclusive, sustainable development within the continent. Secondly, the idea was to rationalize the resource capacities and use across the continent. For example, we wanted to take advantage that if we have a university in South Africa that has comparative advantage in the area of food and nutrition, in the areas of environmental management, then that university should work and support the capacity development across the continent. We wanted to link with the University of Nairobi because it had the programs, and together with the university in Abayero in northern Nigeria, they were already dealing with the issues of sustainable development and enhancing soil and nutritional fertility. We wanted to make use of those universities so that they could develop capacity for the rest of other universities in Africa. Importantly, we wanted a platform for training quality graduates to support development process in Africa, but with the idea that the graduates should be trained in different parts of Africa so that we have a better appreciation of our continent, so that we promote regional networking and also humbly in that process promote efforts towards regional integrations. We started as a network of 10 universities in 5 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa. We are today a network of 129 universities in 38 African countries. Our focus has remained strengthening human capital development and research capacity to support Africa's development agenda. We have a particular focus on strengthening agricultural research for supporting food systems in Africa. We recognize that we cannot do this individually or alone. We need strategic partnerships for learning and for enhancing economies of scale and scope in the fields of higher agricultural education, science, technology, and innovation. But importantly, we wanted to promote relevance of our member universities so that we are better aligned to the development agenda within the continent. But also we wanted a platform where we could raise issues from the universities and pass it on to our policymakers and our development partners. A quick glance of what we have done since 2004, I think we are building capacity for capacity development within the continent, working across the various countries. We participate in the resource mobilization, as you can see. We are training, we are supporting networking, and we are supporting research. Thanks for the support from our member governments and the partners. For this meeting, ladies and gentlemen, as the Honorable Minister from Malawi has articulated, the United Nations, through its Secretary General, is convening a global conference on food systems and hunger, with the recognition that we will not be able to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals unless we deal with the issue of hunger, malnutrition, and make sure that our agricultural systems are resilient to emerging challenges. But whatever we do, Honorable Ministers, as our leaders and our development partners, we must promote inclusivity in the interventions that we undertake. A glimpse, why is it so important for us as a continent? The minister from Malawi has alluded to it. This is a situation in most of Eastern and Central Africa. You will see that in the red slide that it shows you that hunger is increasing rather than decreasing across the continent. And this is for Eastern and South, almost throughout. You only see 2-3 countries which are recording, improved food security status. If you look at West Africa, it's the same story. Hunger is increasing. Why? There's an increasing human population. We are not able to feed. This morning, I was listening to a presentation from one country where they can only meet 30% of their food needs. The rest, we must bring it from outside the continent. Honorable Minister, Commissioner Sako, we cannot outsource food security and nutritional security of our people to the outside world. We must deal with it. So there's persistent challenge of hunger. It's limited. Our capacity for preparedness is weak. Our response capacity is very, very limited. Then we have the increased mouth from the increasing population. And sadly, even though we are a key player in this, the impact, there's gap between the research we do and the impact that we're making, especially at community level. These are challenges that we need to deal with. So, for just reflecting back, what does the United Nations Food System Summit aim to achieve? One, to raise awareness and public discussion on reforming food systems to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. This is part of why we are together, to hear your perspective, to hear perspective from some of our development partners. Importantly, we also like that through this dialogue, we develop some principles to guide our government and stakeholders on how to leverage the food system to support the Sustainable Development Goals. This process, as articulated by the Honorable Minister from Malawi, it involves a series of dialogue at various levels, country level and other levels, as I will show here. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, there are a number of processes that the United Nations Secretary General has put in place. He has put in place a scientific group that has some of our leaders from Africa. They have identified 5 key areas for which they think we need to come out with strategies and interventions to help us strengthen the food systems. He has also put together a team of 100 champions to mobilize global participation in this dialogue. I'm pleased to inform you, Your Excellency, Sako, Commissioner Sako, and all the leaders, that ReForum is one of the 100 champions. The dialogue I've talked about, there are member state dialogues at country levels, there are dialogue at global levels, there are also independent dialogues that are convened, such as the one we are having today. Briefly, what I put on the screen are the 5, what I call 5 action tracks for which we need to deliberate and see some of the strategies, initiatives that we need to debate on at country level and at regional level, such as this one. So what has been the role of ReForum in this? Our role has been to mobilize the participation of African universities and other institutions to engage in a national, regional, continental, and global dialogue platform. We have also worked to support a number of national and regional dialogue platform. Importantly, a key voice that we must listen to are the voices of the youth. As part of this, ReForum has brought in youth from Africa, from across the globe, so that they present their perspective, how they see the future of food systems across the globe. We also have hosted a global meeting for higher education institution, research institution, and agricultural advisory board, so that we see how best we could work together and contribute to the various development agenda to address the issues of improved food systems and summit. We, as part of today, we have also put in place mechanisms to engage with policymakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we organized a meeting for African government technical experts on the 27th May 2021. We are very, very grateful that we are about 20 member states in Africa represented. Today, we are holding this ministerial meeting on 9th June, and we are going to have a follow-up meeting with selected advocates for Africa's development on 17th June. Then we are hoping that His Excellency, the President of Malawi, will be hosting a pre-UN summit for African heads of states on 1st of July this year. ReForum will also pledge to work with the member states, African Union, and other agencies to follow up in some of the post-UN food system activities. For this meeting, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, we are seeking your guidance and commitments towards strengthening food systems in Africa. We are also seeking for opportunities for higher education, research, and other agencies to participate with you member states and other agencies in addressing the issues of food systems development in our continent. We are also will propose to you some things that we think are important as you engage at the UN summit, some of the voices, some of the issues we think should come from our commitment, from our continent. Finally, we are very delighted that we have had friends, partners that the African Union Commission you have mobilized, our member government you have mobilized. We have FAO in this meeting, which has got a better picture of what the current food systems is like in the continent. We need to listen to their perspective. But we also have our traditional development partner, the European Union. You have the partnership with the African Union. The World Bank, you have been working with various member states from Africa. A representative from the US Department of Agriculture. We are very, very happy that you are joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for honoring our invitation. We look forward to listening to your voices. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Your Excellencies.
Part a presentation from Professor Adibala Ekwama. A round of applause. Can I now invite a documentary message from Secretary General, Special Envoy Dr. Agnes Karibata, President of ACRA? You are given 4 minutes.
Your Excellencies, colleagues, and friends, as you know, last year the UN Secretary General called for a food system summit to unleash the power of food to drive progress across all 17 United Nations development goals. I thank you for stepping forward to become a leader for the food systems change. These dialogues bring together people from all parts of society to share evidence, experience, and new ideas. Food is powerful. The food we eat brings us together as families, as communities, and as nations. It underpins our culture, our economies, and our relationship with the natural world. The world's food system touches every aspect of human existence, which makes them valuable instruments of change. The reason we are having a summit this year, and the reason we are here today, is because we are off track. We are not set to achieve on our shared vision and goals for the 2030 agenda. Our food systems have staggering levels of inequality. Our key priority for this summit is to bring more inclusive, equitable, and healthier food systems while also safeguarding our planet. These dialogues are a core element of the summit process. They are an opportunity to come together and identify priorities and actions to be taken for a better future. This will be a people's summit, but it will also be a solution summit because everyone is part of the food system. We are looking to get all of you and your ideas around the table to ensure that action is owned and driven by different actors. We want action to be driven by you. Your leadership and the ability to have courageous conversations rather than avoid them will be very critical. If we can't have courageous conversations about what needs to change and how we need to work together, then we won't be able to go very far. We need each of you to determine the food system you want for your future and to act on it to make them a reality. We must do this understanding fully well our place in the world and that what we do as individuals impacts on others. I look forward to working with you in this summit process. Together, we can build a world of inclusive growth, environmental sustainability, and social justice. We can build a resilient world where no one is hungry, no one is poor, and no one is left behind. I thank you.
A round of applause for her, please. She actually focused on priorities and action for a better future. Now we can have official opening remarks. Will be done by H.E. Joseph Korea Sabo, who is Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, every one of you from Addis Ababa. Honorable Lobin Lowe, Minister of Agriculture of the Republic of Malawi, all ministers present in this event, Mr. Daniel Whitley, Acting Administrator of the Foreign Agriculture Service, USA, Dr. Leonard Nisi, Directorate General for International Cooperation, European Union Commission, Dr. Simeon Iwi, World Bank Regional Director for Sustainable Development for West and Central Africa, Dr. Abebe Aile Gabriel, Food and Agriculture Organization, Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa, all protocol duly observed. I thank the ReForum for the invitation to address and open this pre-UN Food System Summit 2021 Ministerial Dialogue. Africa's food system already manifests several weaknesses that we are all aware. The 2020 edition of the State of Food Security and Nutrition reports indicates that hunger as measured by the prevalence of undernourishment was 19.1% of the population in 2019, or more than 250 million undernourished people, up from 17.6% in 2014. This is more than twice the world average of 8.9%, and this is the highest among all the regions in our planet. To feed its growing population, it was so said by Minister Lobin, Africa spends about 45 billion annually on food imports, and this figure could reach 110 billion in 2022 if we don't change the narrative. All these were before the COVID-19 pandemic, which may push another 30 to 50 million more into undernourishment. Food system also contributes up to 25% of all GHG emission. Basically, There are 5 major challenges to Africa's food system. These are underdeveloped food value chain within the broad agriculture, animal and fishery subsector, such as a result of poor infrastructure, lack of incentive, and limited opportunity for willing investors in the sector. 2, poor underdeveloped food logistics, including storage facilities, transport, and market operation, which has resulted in increasing import bills. 3, unnecessary wide opening of our borders to food importation, those strangling our own food, agri-food production and processing system. 4, lack of or a limited promotion of our local and indigenous food and the nutrient-rich diets, which has resulted in consumption and market demand of exotic food imported from outside the continent. And for the fifth area is limited implementation of National Agricultural Plan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we must transform our food system to reduce poverty, improve food and nutrition security, and be more sustainable and resilient. The time is now to renew our ambition to move at the scale and speed required to achieve the SDGs by 2030. The United Nations Food System Summit, to be convened at the margin of the 76th section of the General Assembly in New York as part of the decade of action to deliver in the Sustainable Development Goal, led by our own sister, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, offers a unique opportunity to lay the foundation for the sustainable food system sustainable food systems of the features across the 5 action tracks. A food system that will meet the food and nutrition needs of current and future generation on our continent, while safeguarding and improving farmers' livelihood, creating jobs for our youth, conserving natural resources and our biodiversity, and contributing to sustainable development. It is crucial that Africa prepares very well. It is crucial that Africa prepares very well for this summit, and we are doing so. This dialogue is one of the ways to prepare ourselves and to talk in one voice during this summit. We must all get out of our comfort zone, bring new voices and actors to the table, and collectively move in a clear direction to scale up food system approaches that are working for all people and the planet. We need to learn from each other, particularly smallholder farmers, fishers, and pastoralists, young farmers, and all others who are a part of food system as producers, processors, preparers, and consumers. Everyone must be part of the food system to create the change we desire. It is for this reason that I congratulate ReForum for the various dialogue that they have been organizing to bring the various voices to the table to complement the ongoing national dialogue and other various consultations across the continent. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as the continent is preparing towards the UN Food System Summit, Africa United Voice on the Food System Agenda will be very critical for positioning itself on how to maximize the co-benefit of a food system approach in the context of Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2030. The African Union is already working with our Pan-African partners and stakeholders to develop a common African position for transformation of African food system to be presented at the UN Food Systems Summit. The ministerial group, our specialized technical committee, the STC, on agriculture, rural development, water, and environment is leading the process, and they will be meeting soon to define the African common position, while outer NEPAD and the UNECA are supporting member states and regional economic community in organizing national and regional dialogues. The African Regional Group of Ambassadors and Permanent Representatives accredited to the Rome-based UN agency has submitted a position paper to inspire a roundtable discussion aimed at accelerating African food system transformation. The outcome of national and regional dialogue and the position paper will ultimately provide a comprehensive overview of African food system that will help to accelerate Africa's agricultural transformation towards improving livelihoods, wealth, health, and well-being through well-aligned and coordinated efforts. Once endorsed, the common African position will constitute the African voice at the UN Food System Summit that will enable the continent to demonstrate itself as a strong and influential global partner, as well as creating a win-win situation and agenda-setting circumstances as far as issues of promoting food security in Africa are concerned. It is now my singular honor to declare open this ministerial dialogue, and I thank you all for your kind attention. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention. Muito obrigada. Muitas gracias. Shukran.
Somali, what he's trying to trade at is these food systems dialogues will be an opportunity for Africa to have a better platform to speak with one voice at UN Food System Summit. A lot of applause for her. Wonderful. Now we can go to Daniel Whitered, who is acting administrator of foreign agricultural services in USA, to present the US Africa Partnership on Agricultural Advancement Africa. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much. And thanks to all of you for putting this together. Obviously, ReForum, this is an amazing event. It's certainly timely with respect to what the global agriculture community is facing and what's upon us. And I do think that this is a monumental opportunity for the global ag community. When you think about what's ahead of us for the next 6 to 12 months, the Food System Summit, the climate change discussions, COP26. Obviously, there are discussions that will take place with respect to the World Trade Organization, WTO, later this year. And all of these international organizations and engagement opportunities will certainly provide a path and an idea of what the future of ag productivity and global agricultural markets will mean for all of us. So I want to thank you all for putting this event together. I want to thank you all for inviting me. And I want to take my time this morning to talk to you about basically 4 themes. One, sort of what the United States messaging is and will be on the Food System Summit. 2, how we engage with universities. I'm a academic, big fan of academics and research and science and analysis. And I think what ReForum represents and what you all are doing is just absolutely monumental. The third thing I want to kind of talk about is how the United States is responding to the climate change challenge. Obviously, there are a number of challenges facing the global agricultural community. The time seems ripe from my perspective, where so many nations, so many governments, so many industries, private sector are coming together to tackle the question and the challenges with respect to climate change. And lastly, I'll just say a few words about our engagement with our all of our partners in Africa. Obviously, Africa is a very, very valuable global partner for the United States, and there's so many areas and ways we can engage and collaborate to move the global economy further, as well as global ag productivity, community, and food systems at large. So with that as somewhat of an overview of what I'll discuss this morning, let me start by saying the United States strongly supports the summit's goals of accelerating progress towards ending hunger and malnutrition and building more sustainable, equitable, and resilient food systems. The summit is an extremely valuable opportunity to focus the world's attention on these shared goals and to act with urgency for the health of the planet and the well-being of current and future generations. Obviously, for some time, we've talked about the ability to feed 10 billion people by the year 2050. It's events like the Food System Summit that will help give us direction and come up with the technology and innovation and the solutions that will help the global ag community meet that future demand. Now, sustainable food systems are critical to addressing the climate crisis, and the adoption of climate smart ag practices, as well as other low emission practices in food systems, should be promoted to reduce emissions and enhance resilience of food systems to fight climate change. Now, one of the things we believe wholeheartedly in is that the summit should embrace the rich diversity of food systems approaches, not a one-size-fits-all approach to improve sustainability of food systems. It should be inclusive of innovation, technology, and a variety of approaches specific to location and context. What may work in one region of the world may not work in one region of the world. What may work for row crop agricultural producers may not work for animal agricultural producers. So we think there needs to be a level of respect and understanding for the diversity of solutions that comes out of the Food System Summit. It should certainly avoid prescriptive approaches that limit the ability of governments, farmers, industry, as well as entrepreneurs to develop innovation and come up with context-specific solutions. Productivity growth is critical, especially when it means we're living in a time where we may have to produce more with less land, less water, fewer inputs and resources. So it's critical to think about all of these impacts on poverty as the world continues to advance to meet all of our food demand, with respect to the fact that we have a role to play about agriculture's involvement in the environmental impact. Increasing ag productivity not only alleviates poverty, but it also improves food security. That's a theme I've already heard several times this morning by the wonderful presenters who spoke before me. It also helps with natural resource management. Obviously, we want to take care of the land. We want to be mindful of our natural resources, and we want to make sure that we use all of this to improve the standards of living for all of our global citizens. The United States is a leader in ag research and development to improve productivity. We engage in a number of programs and collaborative efforts with many, many countries around the world, multiple countries in Africa, to promote these uses of natural resources in agriculture. Now, we think by leveraging evidence-based innovation and science, including biotechnology, we can expand all of the tools for farmers, fishers, and other producers to improve sustainability and resilience throughout food systems. And we are eager to bring this expertise to this summit. The summit should focus on governments and country-led solutions, drawing on all stakeholders from civil society to private sector, farmers, whether they're ranchers, row crop producers, entrepreneurs, industry, governments. The list goes on and on. Everybody should have a voice, provide input, as we find a path towards innovation and creative solutions to the challenges that we all face. Now, let me say a few words about how USDA engages with our academic community and the universities here in the United States. We are proud to partner with our land grant system. We have over 100 colleges and universities that were actually created and designed to assist the U.S. government with research and technology with respect to agriculture. And through a variety of programs, we engage with these universities on research and extension along all parts of the value chains from production to consumption. We've reached out to them at these times to help us think about, understand, research all of the components of the food system. We have a specialized research area known as the National Institute of Food and Agriculture that works with these universities, the science and educators, and they come up with research topics and themes to work with these universities each and every single year to come up with the best science-based solutions to the problems we face in agriculture. So we're very proud of those universities. On a personal note, both of my academic degrees come from land-grant universities, and I can tell you the value that we get at USDA from the land-grant community is critical to how we develop sound policy, how we understand science, and how we find solutions with respect to American agriculture. And of course, we are excited whenever given the chance to pass that expertise along to the global agricultural community. Now, climate change and sustainability is not just important for USDA, it is critical for the Biden-Harris administration. And to do this, to support the Biden-Harris administration, USDA's approaches needs to be just as innovative as our farmers, just as dynamic as the shifting context in which they operate. There is not, I repeat, there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to these systems. There must be a respect for technology and innovation. There must be an understanding of the diversity of producers that occupy the entire globe when it comes to food and agricultural products. And flexibility has to be a key to understanding this so that farmers and ranchers in the ag community can continue to produce effectively and efficiently. Now, USDA will invest in innovation and enhance existing approaches. We're going to deliver new ways to grow and use food and fiber and fuel and build more resilient food systems. We're going to partner with countries, like-minded countries. We're going to rely on science. We're going to understand and appreciate the science. And we're going to do all of this while reducing greenhouse gas emissions and doing our level best effort to sequester carbon. USDA recently released the Climate Smart Agriculture and Forest Strategy to leverage practices and technologies to strengthen our approaches in increasing climate resilience, carbon sequestration, and ag productivity. Now, to advance all three dimensions of sustainability, we think there are three critical dimensions of sustainability. One, social; two, economic; and three, of course, environmental. We have to focus on innovative solutions that are inclusive and accessible globally. That's where I think this conference is critical as you talk about all of the stakeholders, all of the citizens, all parts of the world having access to these solutions. That needs to be a key part of what the global ag community does moving forward. I've heard it this morning, I'll repeat it. We must pay special attention to women, those who live in extreme poverty, small scale producers, family farmers. The presenter before me spoke about young people. They're key. They're key. They're very critical. Indigenous people must have a voice. Marginalized communities, we need to hear from them. And certainly small and medium-sized enterprises. Everyone has a seat at the table when it comes to food systems, and we need input. We need to hear their approaches. We need to hear what works, what doesn't work for what they're dealing with. We also must increase job opportunities and develop the skills needed for the modern food economy. Consumer demand is changing. Their taste and preferences are changing. Suppliers, governments, the private sector must understand these changes and adapt with technology and innovation to meet the future demand. Equitable access to the inputs and the finances needed to be a successful ag enterprise is also critical, as well as the market information that dictates how we meet consumer demand. All of these will be part of the U.S. approach and input into any climate change, sustainability, and food systems discussion moving forward. Now, finally, let me wrap up and just talk a little bit about USDA's engagement with Africa. We are very proud of all of the programs that we operate and all of the collaboration that we've had with Africa for many, many decades. Throughout the continent, we've worked to develop agriculture, we've worked to develop and improve nutrition and enhance two-way trade. The United States fully supports and collaborates with African partners that will lead to an enabling environment of increased transparency, predictable policies, and robust information systems, which are needed to instill confidence in food systems and markets globally. USDA collaborates closely with the African Union and other regional economic communities to support initiatives relating to the harmonization of SPS standards, increased transboundary pest and disease monitoring, increased formal seed production and innovation, biotech, gene editing, the list goes on and on and on. There are so many technical assistance collaborations with Africa, and we're very proud to continue to share expertise and help the African continent develop systems, improve regulatory environment, and develop the ability to increase and strengthen economic and global trade ties. Now, one specific effort that's currently underway that we're very proud of with the African Union is we're working on a regional conference on seed development using biotech. This conference is expected to happen either late this year or early 2022. We're very proud. We think it's going to give us an opportunity to talk about the benefits we've experienced with biotech, as well as the benefits of embracing innovation and technology, both economically, sustainable, as well as environmental. A couple other programs I like to mention that we're proud of is we've worked tirelessly in the African continent to promote and improve school feeding programs through our McGovern Dole program, where we fed over 70,000 children in over 100 schools. Very important to strengthen and improve these programs as we help many, many African countries improve their own systems. We also shared education and research and extension expertise by bringing over your scientists, bringing over professors, bringing over government officials and students to learn about how we do agriculture here in the United States. Agriculture and Africa are key to meeting the problems of the future. As we think about all of the solutions, all of the opportunities that will be available to the world, the global ag community, to meet those solutions, Africa is certainly at the top of the list to be part of that effort. So we look so forward to working with all of you. We look forward to collaborating with you. We want to applaud the academic community for pulling this together in Africa and embracing science, technology, innovation, analysis to lead the path forward. Together, I think the United States, as well as many, many African countries and nations, will be leaders in all of the challenges facing global agriculture moving forward. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for pulling this forum together. Back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Acting Administrator of Foreign Agricultural Services, USA, for the renewed commitment for US-Africa partnership. Now let me invite Dr. Leonard Nizi, Director General for International Development, European Commission. Perspective from European Union Commission. Welcome. Professor Adifa, can you confirm, is Dr. Leonard Nizi around? Confirmation? Invite the next one, who is Dr. Simeon Envoy.
Thank you, Honorable Lobin Lowe, Minister of Agriculture of Malawi. I hope you hear me well. Honorable Her Excellency Ambassador Joseph Sako, Commissioner for Rural Economy, Agriculture and Environment of the African Union, all ministers here present, His Excellency Professor Abebe Aile Gabriel, FAO Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa, Professor Adepala Ekwemu, ReForum Executive Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, in your respective ranks and qualities, I am delighted to be part of the important discussions of the pre-UN Food System Summit Dialogue. Today, I would like to speak about three things: the devastating effects of the pandemic on the continent, the broader green, resilient, and inclusive transformation of Africa's food system, and the critical need to urgently scale up investment in agri-food education and skills for Africa's youth. Africa's food systems is under severe stress from the devastating effect of the pandemic. COVID-19 placed enormous stress on food systems. According to the World Food Programme, up to 96 million additional people were pushed into acute food insecurity in 2020 across 54 IDA countries at the International Development Association, bringing the total to 265 million people. In Africa, food systems already faced long-term challenges before COVID-19, increasingly propelled by structural drivers of food insecurity, such as climate change, conflict, economic shocks, zoonotic diseases, and pests such as locusts and fall armyworms. Across sub-Saharan Africa alone, due to the pandemic, 120 million people now face acute food insecurity, up from 73 million in 2019. Therefore, the World Bank's food support to the COVID-19 response has focused on immediate livelihood needs while not losing sight of the longer-term drivers of food insecurity. The support combine financing emergency cash transfer programs, better access to food, and production of jobs and livelihood. From April 2020 to February 2021, the World Bank approved or restructured 57 projects in 44 countries, totaling $8.8 billion and reaching a projected 977 million beneficiaries. This effective first-line response improved food security and the welfare of the poorest. The latest projections show that the world is heading toward a climate outcome warmer than the targeted 2.5 degrees. This could be catastrophic for African food security. And this was mentioned by the previous speakers. Thus, the World Bank Group is calling for integrated, green, resilient, and inclusive development approaches to repair the damage caused by COVID-19. Adaptation to climate change must underpin this recovery. Investment in building the skills and capacity of the youth in Africa that will respond to these new realities is more critical than ever before. As we look into the future, we need to advance the agricultural transformation which has been happening on the continent with digital transformation. We are witnessing rapid technical change across Africa's food system. Over the last decade or so, agriculture has experienced a digital transformation with remarkable growth in agri-tech investment. With 6.7 billion invested in the last 5 years, mobile connectivity and internet access have more than tripled since 2005. However, agriculture is currently the slowest adopter of digital technologies compared to other sectors. We need to catch up. This is a challenge, but also a huge opportunity for Africa's agriculture to leap forward. To harvest this opportunity, the agriculture education system must play a catalytic role. But Sub-Saharan Africa is not well equipped to deliver the skill set needed for these educational programs. The question is, how do we make digital agriculture a reality and promote uptake of innovation by farmers? The effort undoubtedly needs to be multi-sectoral with skills transformation at its heart. Transforming Africa's agriculture education for greater digital entrepreneurship is the right way to go because of several factors. There is a high correlation between digital application uptake and skills. Agri-digital training ecosystem rather than one-off training are far less effective. There is positive news from Africa on the training impact. Only about a third of youth-targeted interventions show a significant positive impact on employment or earnings globally. Yet, the impact of training programs in low and middle income countries has been much higher. Involving the private sector in program delivery is associated with improved impact. There's need to build strong digital skills among women. And the acting US administrator who just spoke before me mentioned it. Strong women leadership in agriculture will further promote inclusive agricultural technology platforms. Currently, there is a persistent large gender gap in leadership in agriculture and in women's access to resources and technology. Women are 22% less likely than men to own mobile phone in Africa. At this point, I would like to salute the effort of Her Excellency Ambassador Sako for the work she do in the Sahel with women involved in agriculture. What does this mean for agriculture research, universities, and training institutions? The future food system in the region will need a technologically capable human capital base open to risk-taking and to new ideas, and an unprecedented level of collaboration across the research, universities, private sector space to enable the adoption of innovations at the scale needed in African agriculture. Let me share an example of how this was successfully achieved through the West Africa Agricultural Cooperative Program which is a World Bank funded program now closed. It's popularly known in West Africa as the WAP. It started with 3 countries and focused on establishing national centers of specialization for rice in Mali, roots and tuber in Ghana, and dry cereals in Senegal. It facilitated the movement of improved crop varieties across borders of West Africa through improved information and harmonized seed regulation. WAP benefited 9 million beneficiaries with the adoption of 200 improved technologies. Average incomes increased by over 30%, and over 1,000 young scientists were awarded scholarships for master's and PhD degrees. The World Bank is currently preparing a follow-on support that further develop agriculture value chain, market linkages, and greater adoption of improved technologies. An effective collaboration across partners is urgently needed. This is why the World Bank, the FAO, IFAD, African Development Bank, working closely with the African Union Commission, launched the Africa Food Security Leadership Dialogue in Kigali in 2019. Our common goal is to mobilize urgent action on food security under climate change in Africa and call for the implementation of climate-smart agriculture policies and scientific innovation in agriculture. In conclusion, Chairman, I would like to thank ReForum for hosting this event. I would also like to acknowledge the work that ReForum has been spearheading to help African universities withstand the crisis over the last year, and in particular promote virtual learning across all kinds of circumstances, has been remarkable and shows the impressive drive for innovation that ReForum is able to catalyze across over 100 universities, African universities that participate in the network. We cannot achieve success without skills transformation to foster entrepreneurship and high quality jobs in the agriculture sector. Thank you, Chair.
That was Dr. Simeon Ihu, World Bank Regional Director for Sustainable Development, that is agriculture, environment, social, water, urban, and climate, West and Central Africa. He is actually appreciating the job well done by ReForum. This is very encouraging. Allow me to give some highlights regarding the program. I will proceed before I invite next presenter who will proceed like this. Next will be HE Professor Abebe Haile Gabriel. After him, I will invite Professor Teresa Kao Aken. Then we'll have documentary story from Kenya. After that documentary, we'll have ministers or country representatives. Each one will be given a maximum of 3 minutes. After the ministers, we'll have a presentation and discussion on the ministers' draft communique. It will be presented by Secretary for Agriculture for Malawi. Then we'll go into vote of thanks to be presented by Professor Adres Malata. That is how we'll proceed. I'm not sure if Dr. Renard Miss has joined us. If not, then now we can go to Professor Abebe Haile Gabriel, Food and Agriculture Organization, Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa. that is on keynote address, current status of food systems in Africa and implication for poverty, food and nutritional security in the continent. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Lobin Lowe, Minister of Agriculture, Republic of Malawi, Your Excellency Ambassador Josepha Sako, Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment of the African Union Commission, Professor Adipala Ekwamu, ReForum Executive Secretary, Mr. Daniel Whitley, Acting Administrator of the Foreign Agricultural Services of the US America, Dr. Leonard Midhi, Director General for International Development of the European Commission, Dr. Simeon Ehui, the Regional Director for Sustainable Development, West and Central Africa of the World Bank. I would like to commend ReForum for organizing this important meeting and thank my brother, Professor Adipala, for inviting me to share some of our thoughts from FAO perspectives on a very key topic. With your permission, Honorable Minister Chair, I would like to share my screen. And this is going to be my presentation. You may please confirm if you can see my screen. Okay, yes, thank you so much. Well, I'm going to make this presentation. So, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Yeah.
I think Professor Beba has a network problem.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Prof?
Oh, okay. Oh, because
Chair, this is Simeon Ewi. I was speaking with Professor Bebe on the sideline. He has some technical issues. He's proposing that you go to the next speaker and he will come back.
I see.
Thank you.
So, such being the case, maybe we can now go to Professor Teresa Kou Akei, ReForum Deputy Board Chair and Vice Chancellor, University of Bermuda. Is it Bermuda, Cameroon? Statement from African University. Professor. Professor, are you around?
Hello.
Are you around?
We can't hear you. Hello?
You can't hear me.
Hello?
Hello, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so we can give the floor to Professor Teresa Kou Akei.
Thank you very much, Prof. Honorable Minister of Agriculture of the Republic of Malawi, Lobin Lowe, Your Excellency Ambassador Josepha Sako, African Union Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture, Dr. Leonardo Misi, Directorate General for International Development, the European Union, Dr. Simeon Ewi, Regional Director for Sustainable Development, World Bank, Mr. Daniel Whitley, Acting Administrator of the Foreign Agricultural Services of the United States of America, Professor Ebebe Hele Gabriel, Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, Honorable Ministers, Mrs. Erica Maganga, Secretary for Agriculture, Government of Malawi, Secretary Generals of various ministries, Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to talk to you on behalf of African universities. I have listened keenly to your statements and vision for future food systems, especially in Africa. As a network of African universities, we have also listened to voices of various stakeholder groups at national, sub-regional, continental, and global levels, including voices of youth from across the globe. Permit me, therefore, to make the following statements. Africa's food systems. Africa is home to nearly 1.4 billion, or about 17% of the world population. The vast majority of these people live on rural Africa, deriving their livelihoods from the land, basically agriculture and related resources. Vibrant agri-food systems, that is the combination of activities, production, storage, processing, wholesaling, and consumption, and institutions engaged in production to consumption of food are key to delivery of the continent's development agenda, Africa We Want, and the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. With 60% of Africa's population dependent on agriculture, clearly, a vibrant agricultural sector must be part of the solution to create inclusive development of the continent. Agriculture is and will invariably exogenously influence mega trends in Africa, such as urbanization and its effects on food demand and modernization of the continent's food systems, and as well as changes in the continent's workforce from farming to non-farming jobs and its relationships to their increased income opportunities and shift to global food consumption patterns. The increasing appetite for Africa's arable lands to produce for global food security is an important trend, and the potential threat posed by climate change to an already fragile agri-food systems call for measured agricultural development policy. To be sure, the pace and force of these development megatrends are highly dependent on contemporary as well as future policy and public investment decisions by national and global actors, governments being the key actor as a moderator of public policy that shapes the way international forces affect local agricultural sectors. The leadership of Africa recognizes these development risks and opportunities, especially as embodied by mega development trends, and therefore needs to undertake measures to address them collectively in order to grow the economy and build back better where there have been reversals and stagnation, with sustainable and resilient food systems that meet food and nutrition needs of Africa and global needs. Who produces Africa's food, and what is the opportunity? Africa produces its food from two main types of systems. That is, smallholder-based, highly diversified production systems that are most widespread and typically occur on less than 2 to 3 hectares of land, with a maximum of 5 hectares in some countries, and the progressive semi to extensive production systems with land holdings of up to 50 hectares on average that are increasingly owned and managed by urban elites, including civil servants, most of who dwell in urban settings. This group of progressive farmers in general use modern production technologies, but are far less in number compared to smallholder producers. It is these smallholder farming systems that feed and employ the vast majority of Africans, with women accounting for up to 70% of the labor force. Africa's unique demographic transitions, underpinned by fairly high fertility rates, pose structural challenges to the rural-urban migrations that could make way for land consolidation, conversely fueling massive job needs across the continent. that Africa needs to create to accommodate all youth. Job creation level by various macroeconomic challenges is driving a multi-directional, including rural to rural and urban to rural migration pattern that involves both rural to urban and urban to rural migrations, mostly within the continent, estimated at 763 million people. Accordingly, smallholder agriculture remains a fundamental safety valve for absorbing most of the new labor force into gainful employment for several decades to come. The primacy of Africa's smallholder agriculture to underpin sustainable and equitable food systems that support food and nutrition security for all, for the present generations and posterity, is unequivocal and must be integral in discussions on global food systems. The investment opportunity. Science solutions for growth. For Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, to realize its full agricultural potential, to bolster its food systems, there is need for significant investment in key productivity enhancing innovations. It is estimated that Africa needs 8 times more fertilizer than it currently uses, 17 kilograms per hectare of nutrients compared to the global average of 135 kilograms per hectare. 6 times more improved seed, at least $8 billion of investment in basic storage, not including cold chain investments for horticulture or animal products, and as much as $65 billion in irrigation to fulfill its agricultural potential. If this happens, Africa could produce 2 to 3 times more cereals and grains than it currently does, adding 20% more cereals and grains to the current worldwide 2.6 billion tons of output. Skilling populations for higher productivity. In general, only a fraction of smallholder farmers has requisite entrepreneurial ability and productive assets. Skilling such populations and in general, improving the labor productivity is critical for African agriculture to play a greater role in meeting local to global food demand in a competitive and a cost-effective and competitive manner as sub-Saharan Africa harnesses science solutions for growth. Indeed, sub-Saharan Africa has already demonstrated a competitive advantage in production of some cash crops, especially for beverages and nuts, that is coffee, cashew, cocoa, tea, and processed horticulture products. The region could do the same for its food crops, for which yield improvements alone are often not enough to improve competitiveness. A more holistic human capital development is therefore required to rebuild the agricultural workforce from production to research and innovations, as well as entrepreneurship, seizing on inclusive growth opportunities such as mobile phone banking, infrastructure investments that are opening up in Africa. African University is pivotal in the design and implementation of training programs that aim to address the asymmetric proportions of farmers to technicians to scientists needed to underpin sustainable food systems. A proportionately balanced workforce will enhance labor productivity, especially when coupled with agri-innovations, creating opportunity to increase rural incomes and participation in cash economy. This will overall enable Africa build a strong agricultural sector that leverages its food market opportunity and captures a relatively higher share of value from increased demand from rural to urban consumers. Our call to action. The UN Food Systems Summit advances a people-centered and based on human rights and social justice agenda as the world works to delivering the SDGs. But this cannot happen without ending hunger and malnutrition and without having sustainable and resilient climate-compatible agriculture and food systems. As Africa's universities, we are aware of the fact that current trends and transformations being observed in Africa's food systems are outcomes of policies and public investment patterns of prior decades, and notes that the future will be shaped and transformed by today's policy actions. So what should governments do? We propose 3 sets of mutually reinforcing action areas. Number 1, strengthen production fundamentals. While the 2000s saw a resurgence in growth of African agriculture, the total factor productivity of African agriculture still remains relatively lower than that of other developing regions. Deployment and widespread use of productivity enhancing agri-innovations is key for building back strong. With 60% of the world's arable land and between 20 to 30% available for increased production, a potential threat by climate change and vulnerabilities to especially emergent exogenous factors require Africa to strengthen production fundamentals. Research and innovation must guide how we leverage our production resources, land and water, generate relevant technologies, seed and breeds, guide threat surveillance and inform policy design and accountability that supports scale-neutral investments across all production domains, that's crops, livestock, fisheries, forestry, etc. Without investing in science for its own future, the full benefit of infrastructure investments will not be realized. It will also be essential to institute industrial policies that promote private investment and job growth in local non-farm sectors, essential to attract investment in local agri-food systems. Number 2, integrated human capital development. We call upon African governments to invest strongly in the education value chain, from universities to vocational colleges, to leveraging on secondary and primary education to upgrade the skill levels of young people entering the labor force. Such an investment will catalyze inclusive growth of the agricultural sector. A broad range of human resources is needed to rebalance the agricultural workforce pyramid growth. These include A, research and advisory, B, production, entrepreneurship, and other segments of value chains, C, food processing and marketing, and D, policy to support accountability through effective design and implementation measurement frameworks that inform policy design and assess progress. This will need to be supported by a strong data science and foresight capacity. 3, partnerships for co-creation, resourcing, scaling, and learning. African universities commit to work collaboratively with other actors, including development partners and policymakers in and outside Africa, to marshal the needed response capacity to strengthen Africa's food systems and for scaling out best practices. African governments and their partners are called upon to foster global partnerships to develop more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient food systems that take into account the needs of smallholder farmers and youth, and as part of this, to mobilize investments in mobile connectivity and 4IR capability. We seek partnerships to operationalize the Strengthening Higher Agricultural Education in Africa SHARE initiative, strengthening youth skill development and entrepreneurship, and for building Africa's science, technology, and innovation capacity as encapsulated in the African Ministers' Communique of 5th December 2019 in Cape Coast, Ghana. We offer to engage actively in the European Union, African Union Partnership on Food, Nutrition Security, and Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, African Union, European Union Research and Innovation Partnership on Climate Change and Sustainable Energy, Global Research Alliance on Agriculture Greenhouse Gases, and other continental and global initiatives. We seek for renewed and stronger partnership with USA universities and other global universities. Our success as a continent will depend on building a strong integrated human capital base, strong research and innovation capacity, and strategic partnerships for delivery and scalability. For the above to happen, we call for action and long-term commitments from African governments and their partners. As African universities, we commit to support Africa's development agenda as enshrined in Agenda 2063. We are available and ready to serve our continent. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Deputy Board Chairperson ReForum, a round of applause for her. I can see HE Professor Abebe is around. Can we try you now?
Honorable Minister, thank you so much. My sincere apologies for the technical hitch. I have shared my presentation with the Secretariat. I hope they will be able to share their screen. Secretariat, please. ReForum Secretariat.
They're uploading it. They're uploading it.
Okay, thank you.
Otto, Amatu, please upload. Please upload.
We are still getting it downloaded.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Once again, my sincere apologies. Please, next. In terms of outline, I have 4 areas to briefly cover. The first one was by way of introduction. What are Africa's food systems aspirations in the context of Food System Summit? And then I will have a very brief look into the performance of the agri-food systems in Africa in the context of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and then look at some of the opportunities and possibilities for transformation of the agri-food systems. And finally, summarize the, some of the recommendations, imperatives towards actualizing the transformation. Next, please. Now, the aspirations, what the food systems that we want, Excellency Ambassador Sako talked about the food systems that we want. What are our aspirations? And we can summarize them into 3. It must be a system that delivers food security and nutrition for all. But the system should be also that sustains the livelihoods of the diverse agri-food system actors. And there are so many actors, not just the producers, the farmers and consumers. There are so many. So it must sustain the livelihoods of these diverse agri-food system actors. And thirdly, the system should not compromise the economic, social, and environmental bases that are needed to ensure the food security and nutrition of future generations. So it has an intergenerational dimension as well. So please remember these 3 dimensions. Next, please. So we ask a question about the current food systems in Africa, having this as a background. Exactly the same thing. Does it deliver food security and nutrition for all? Does it sustain the livelihood of agri-food system actors in Africa? Is it efficient? Is it equitable? Does it compromise the economic, social, and environmental bases that are needed to ensure the needs of future generations? For example, does it have positive and neutral impact on the natural environment? One thing that we should be very clear about is that Africa's aspirations when it comes to food systems are not essentially different from the aspirations of the rest of the world. They're basically covering the 3 dimensions. So we'll look at very briefly, in trying to answer these questions in the next few slides. Next, please. One previous to this, please. Slide previous. Yes. Before starting, I think it was Simeon Hui of the World Bank that has indicated the obvious, that Africa's agri-food systems are defined by vulnerability to shocks and threats. And these shocks and threats, they are multiple, they are overlapping. And so the food system in Africa has to deal with multiple and overlapping shocks and threats. I'm not going to repeat what Simeon has said. There are so many. And COVID-19 was just an addition. It complicates the matter. And the second aspect is that there is a very weak or absence of effective and adequate mechanisms or systems or capacities to manage the impacts of those shocks and threats. Let's think of the stimulus packages that people in the developed world are talking about to support their businesses, the social protection systems, how weak and fragmented they are in Africa. So the challenge is not only that of vulnerability to these multiple and overlapping shocks, but lack of capacity to manage them. Next, please. In terms of performance, the food security and nutrition, again, I'm not going to come back to what has already been stated by people who have spoken before me. Suffice is to say that Africa is not on track to meet the 2030 goals, targets, in terms of food security and nutrition. The number of hungry people are on the rise. COVID-19 has exacerbated the problem. In fact, it may have added between 23 to 39 million people to the ranks of undernourished in Africa in 2020. And healthy diets, they are very expensive. They are not affordable. And therefore, they are out of reach for 3/4 of Africans. This is a major concern. On the graph, you can see, comparing with other regions, the sub-Saharan Africa, percentage of undernourished people by region, comparing two years, 2015, 2019. It's a big problem. Next, please. When we look at the levels of productivity and income, the productivity and incomes of small-scale producers, and these are the majority in Africa, on the African continent, they are systematically lower. And therefore, it translates directly to poverty, which is rampant. And therefore, implication on SDG targets, on poverty, on hunger, on equality, on gender, and so on. And big questions related to inclusiveness. The graph shows agricultural output per labor, meaning labor productivity by size of producers. Basically, we're talking about smallholder farmers, and many countries, the examples show that it's very low. Please, continue. Next. When it comes to production, we should be talking about inefficiencies of the agri-food systems. Now, we know that the source of agricultural growth has been through expansion of cultivated areas. And this at the expense of forest, grasslands, and other uses. You can see that according to FAO recent study, the land use change between 2000 and 2018, about 12 million hectares of forests have been cleared to make way for cultivated area. So the increase is not coming from increased productivity, and this is not sustainable. Next, please. Another indicator of efficiency of resource use is leakage. And the graph shows the food loss. And the figures on food loss in Africa are among the highest in the world. This is a comparative region by region. And this, in the case of Africa, this is happening against the backdrop of low production. So in other regions, they may have more production and loss, even if it's high, they can manage. For us, we're dealing with low production, high loss. And according to some assessments, the task of food processing usually falls disproportionately on women. And on average, women spend about 4 hours a day, per day, pounding just grains. So this is also an indication of how we are using resources. Next, please. Another indicator of efficiency of resource use is water, a very important resource for agriculture. The water use efficiency measured in terms of US dollars per cubic meter. And this shows the right figure, the one on the right-hand side shows a comparative indication between 2017 and 2000. And not only the figures for sub-Saharan Africa are low comparatively to other regions, but also it's going down, actually. Next, please. Now, it's not enough to lament about the problems. Let's see what opportunities there are. And there are so many opportunities. In terms of productivity potential, estimates indicate that Africa could be between 2 to 3 times more productive if it gets its agri-food systems in order. And in fact, according to the African Development Bank estimate, the value of annual agricultural output could increase from the current $280 billion to as much as $1 trillion business by the year 2030. And markets are growing, trade opportunities are expanding. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is now in force, as you know, and it creates a lot of opportunities for market and trade. New digital technologies, again, this was emphasized in previous speeches. These are driving, actually, the agri-food transformation process at a faster pace that has never been experienced before. We have advanced, this huge advance in science, technology, and innovation, and therefore generating knowledge and providing efficient solutions. And also we have emerging trends and priorities. In fact, in the context of the Food System Summit, one of the solutions is talking about the action tracks for the Food System Summit, setting agenda and new impetus for change. We need to take these opportunities into account. Next, please. Now, this is what I would call a hidden potential for innovation in the agri-food system. Most of the time in the agri-food discussions, the discussion focuses around inputs and outputs, mainly production. I think we need to look at the whole value chain, and it involves, a lot of activities, important activities. And in fact, most of the money resides in here. And if we want to expand job opportunities that are rewarding, we should look at the whole system and empower and enable the stakeholders, the actors, the food system actors, women and men, the producers, organizations, the small and medium enterprises, those in the logistics, the food handlers, the consumers, and so on. So I just want to argue that we have to look at a holistic approach, and this has already been emphasized. Next, please. Now, let's move towards actualizing transformation of the AFC. And I'm going to make 4 proposals. One is, I think we should get the narratives right and the priorities right, and looking at also offering incentives. Now, investment, public investment, it was emphasized before also, but when we look at the Agriculture Orientation Index for government expenditure, compare it between 2001 and 2018, you can see that not only that public expenditure was low, but it has also been declining over time significantly. The graph on the left-hand side shows the figure for sub-Saharan Africa, but you can see it comparatively with other regions. It has a meaning, in particular in the case of trade and so on. On the right-hand side, we see expenditure on research and development and extension, which is also shrinking over time. And in many cases, they have been declining and, of course, well below the African Union target of at least 1% of the agriculture GDP. On the other hand, evidence shows that the return on these investments are among the highest. And I will come to it on the incentive, the importance of incentives. Next, please. So what options are we considering for providing these incentives? What is in it for all stakeholders, for policymakers? Honorable Ministers of Agriculture, you work on a daily basis with your colleagues, Ministers of Finance. How can we make a compelling evidence on why it makes economic and political sense to invest in agri-food systems? This is a challenge, and therefore we need to provide evidences. For producers, in terms of rewarding their efforts in environment, for example, in terms of payments for ecosystem services. And for innovators and investors, what is the economic returns on investment, including property rights? And for universities and researchers, including IPR, is there an incentive? Can we do something about it? And for consumers, in terms of providing safe, healthy, nutritious, and affordable food baskets, through increased productivity and so on. So getting the narratives as well as the incentives, the priorities is very important. Next, please. The second proposal that I would like to make is to look at what is emerging and why it should be considered as an opportunity. We have already seen the source of agricultural growth in Africa is largely through expansion of cultivated area at the expense of forest, and this is not sustainable. One of the action tracks of the Food System Summit is about boosting nature positive solutions at sufficient scale, calling for producing more from less. So the practice of expanding agriculture into forest and other ecosystems is not sustainable. Okay, so sustainability requires nature-based solutions, which are context-specific and based on bottom-up and territorial processes. And I think the administrator of USDA spoke at length on the context-specific approaches. And this could provide huge opportunity for transformation in Africa. In fact, Africa could have comparative advantages in this area. So we need to grab it. Next, please. The third is about bridging the missing middle. There is a huge gap between the global scale available options in terms of technology, in terms of innovation, in terms of knowledge, and the local and national level capacities to implement. And we need to bridge this missing middle. We need to understand that the context, the ecosystem is in a rapid pace of change, and agriculture is increasingly organized more like manufacturing. We can mention precision agriculture as an example. There is this cutthroat market competition. So commodities that are produced under different models, under different regimes, they meet at local marketplace and compete. That's why I was giving you the comparative figures on resource use efficiency, on water and on others, on loss. So in the face of large and rising food imports in Africa, African local commodities are often on the displacement side of the equation. So we need to pay attention to competitiveness. And the implication of this for strategy is that the future will belong to the winning ideas and practices. I'm sure ReForum will take this seriously. So there is this compelling need to be ahead of the curve in our thoughts, in our practices, in order to survive the cutthroat competition. And Africa should be positioning itself as a partner towards contributing to solutions through knowledge generation, through innovation, and knowledge sharing, not merely as a recipient. And therefore, the issue of enhancing productive capacity and skills development, and particularly the importance of investing in the agents of transformation across the whole value chain. Next, please. And this brings us to the last proposal that I would like to make, and this is about effective dialogue and engagement at all levels, at local level, national, regional, and global levels. Three dimensions to it. One is the imperatives and mechanisms of multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholders dialogue. The agenda is not only of agriculture sector, it is multi-sectoral. And therefore, this multi-dimensional dialogue is necessary. The stakeholders, the STI community, the policymakers, the partners, and the need to strengthen the capacities of stakeholders for informed and constructive dialogue and engagement. Secondly, the need for active and deliberate policy engagement with key sectors, and also link this with the work with the conveners of policy processes at appropriate levels, such as at the African Union, at the continental level, regional economic communities at sub-regional level, and so on, as well as institutions such as ReForum for universities. And lastly, develop and harness platforms for knowledge and experience sharing. And I want to mention that FAO is developing regional technical platforms to facilitate this. Next, please. Now, to just conclude, also mentioning FAO's strategy towards this solution, FAO's strategy focuses on supporting transformation to a more efficient, a more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable agri-food systems for better production, for better nutrition, for better environment, and better life without leaving no one behind. And this through an application of what we call accelerators. And these accelerators include technology, innovation, data, and complements such as governance, human capital, and institutions in all the programmatic interventions in an inclusive and gender-sensitive manner. Next, please. This should be the last slide. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. My apologies once again, Honorable Minister. Thank you for your attention. Over to you.
Good. We couldn't afford to miss you. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. A round of applause for him. Now, allow me to open the floor for discussion. The floor is open. Any comment, question? And I would appreciate if you indicate your name and country. If none,
Raised hand.
There is a hand up
good.
from Jenny.
Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Honorable Professor Ikwamu. This is the Minister of Agriculture from Liberia. I don't know if this is the appropriate time for our intervention, or we are still looking for comments on the recent presentation.
According to the program, there is a space for ministers or their representatives. After the discussion, or maybe after the documentary, very soon you will be given a chance.
Thank you. Then I will lower my hand.
Good. Such being the case, if there is none, we may go straight to documentary 4 minutes. A story from Kenya, University in Kenya, 4 minutes, please.
200 kilometers from Nairobi, Kenya. 200 kilometers from Nairobi, Kenya, ReForum grantee and plant scientist Dr. Maina Mwangi is traveling through central eastern Kenya to visit a very special banana farm.
With us today, we have one of the students who was supported by this project. This is Jerry, seated next to me.
My name is Njeri Njao, and I'm at Kenyatta University. And I'm all passionate about agriculture, all passionate about food security. That is my cup of tea.
Safari yetu I think jambo.
Yeah.
Jambo sana.
My names are Elias Kasingo. I am a father of 3 children, 2 daughters and 1 boy. I'm a farmer of banana. Before I was a coffee farmer. Yeah, before the bananas were introduced to me.
I have always wanted to interact with farmers. Sometimes I used to think maybe it's just lab and more lab, but this was awesome.
I am the student. This is the student now. They come with the measurements and taught us how to prepare.
The challenge the farmers were facing was, first of all, obtaining healthy planting materials, seedlings.
Farmers could not afford suitable seedlings, and so they borrowed them from neighbors. Unfortunately, this meant that they were also borrowing soil-borne pathogens.
This is the banana variety they were growing before. It's called a Gros Michel. Has big bunches, nice fruits, but it is very highly susceptible to these soil-borne pathogens. And one solution was to bring in varieties that are not affected. We wanted to come to this community and establish nurseries. Identify farmers who can host a nursery. A cluster of other farmers would learn from there.
Elias is the chairman of a local banana farmers cooperative with 2,000 members, many of whom have been trained to boost productivity.
production is high. That's why I am saying we need some variation and we need the export market.
Each enormous bunch of bananas on this farm weighs over 100 kilograms and will sell near an astounding $30 each.
I think the potential for this family is great. And especially for the young people right now, we find that young people do not want to go into farming. But I'm sure right now, young people around this village will want to go into farming because they have seen the kind of potential it has.
In my home, now I have the children, they want to run. Now that's where the money goes. I'm very secure. If I think of something, I can do it.
I'll tell you frankly, I had great hope that the project would succeed, but I had no imagination that it would have this impact, empowering communities. And I believe we are doing that very well because of the well-crafted program that ReForum is supporting.
ReForum, big thank you. You are making food security happen in Africa, making us the innovators we really are to make Africa the food basket it is. I won't sit back and hope for change, that I will be the change that I want to see.
Good. A wonderful documentary. Now it's time for ministers or country representatives who entertain some brief country statements, a maximum of 3 minutes, on current status of food systems and emerging key issues for consideration by the UN Food Systems Summit and African Union Commission. Looking at the participants, we have participants, Malawi, we have Minister of Education. We have participants from Arab Republic of Egypt, Kingdom of Morocco, Republic of Benin, Republic of Cameroon, Republic of Democratic Republic of Congo, Republic of Ghana, Republic of Kenya, Republic of Liberia, Republic of Mali, Republic of Namibia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Africa, Sudan, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe. So the floor is now open for ministers and for their representatives. Take 3 minutes each. You should mention your name and the country of origin. We can start with Egypt. After Egypt, Morocco, get ready.
Honorable Minister, the two are not in. We could start with others who are in, like Liberia and others who are already in.
Okay, so Liberia.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Low, Professor Ikwamu, Commissioner Sako, Commissioner Mitzi, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to rest on existing protocols. In Liberia, a recent food security assessment showed that we have over 950,000 persons who are food insecure, and this number is set to rise past the 1 million mark over the next few months as the rainy season advances. Poor food consumption in terms of quantity and quality, and over-reliance on emergency coping strategies to meet food needs. We see that diet diversity is more of an issue than food intake. Although rice is the principal staple, 80% of the rice is accessed through the markets, and that what is accessed is 80% of that is imported rice. We see as in many other places and has been explained already that the key drivers of food insecurity are the low purchasing power, inadequate food consumption practices and intake, and limited livelihoods options. And so Liberia welcomed the UN Food Systems Summit and the national dialogues. We plan 5 of them over the course of the next 2 months. And in addition, the Ministry of Agriculture will spearhead a platform for public-private engagement to cater and discuss solutions and actions to improve food and nutrition, safety, security, and to boost livelihoods. Our focus will also rest on youth engagement and education through, for example, the 4-H systems in schools. We have 3 main areas that we are looking at in Liberia. The first is investing in knowledge systems, as has been elaborated earlier, knowledge systems that are evidence-based and that can support a 21st century path to sustainable agricultural production. The partnership with universities and research institutions, including through ReForum, are critical for us for that first focus area. The second focus area, as with many countries in Africa, is promoting climate smart agriculture to preserve our position as West Africa's most important carbon sink and biodiversity hotspot. We're looking at ways to monetize our endowment for greater financial access and inclusivity, including through green financing. Finally, I would like to say that the government of Liberia endorses the statement by the Vice Chancellor, and we commit to implement the actions agreed by Africa for the UN Food Systems Summit in September. Thank you very much.
So Liberia welcomes the Food Systems Summit in September, and she supports this dialogue meeting. And actually, as a country, they have endorsed the statement by the Vice Chancellor? Yeah, good. Now we can go to the next country.
We also have the minister from Benin, the minister from South Sudan, the minister from Sudan is also here.
Mm-hmm.
And the EU representative is also in. The EU representative.
Now he's in.
He's in.
Okay, so go to him after the minister's presentation.
Okay, sir.
Good. Benin. If not, where is Sudan? South Sudan?
South Sudan, yes.
Good.
South Sudan?
South Sudan?
Oui. Bonjour. Vous m'entendez?
Oui, nous vous entendons.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup. C'est un plaisir pour moi de prendre part à ce sommet très important et je voudrais reconnaître tout ce qui se fait dans ce sens et féliciter les initiateurs, en l'occurrence ReForum que nous connaissons très bien au Bénin et dont nous bénéficions également de beaucoup d'appui du ReForum. Donc la présente déclaration évidemment vient de nombreuses concertations et de nombreux échanges auxquels les universités du Bénin ont pris part. Et c'est à l'issue de ces concertations avec le ReForum que la présente déclaration est faite pour soutenir les actions au niveau des universités face aux défis auxquels sont confrontés évidemment les différents systèmes alimentaires. Donc, Madame la commissaire de l'Europe, la commissaire à l'économie et à l'agriculture au niveau de l'Union africaine, Monsieur le ministre de l'Agriculture, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, chers partenaires des organismes régionaux et internationaux, chers participants, comme je le dis, je vais présenter la déclaration du Bénin autour de 3 points. Le premier qui se concentre autour de l'état actuel des systèmes alimentaires, le deuxième qui abordera les défis, et puis le troisième, les différents points ou différentes attentions que nous souhaiterions voir portées par les Nations Unies au cours de ce sommet mondial. Donc, au niveau du Bénin, nous retiendrons que le secteur agricole constitue la principale source de création des richesses économiques. Et c'est pour cela que ce secteur a fait l'objet de beaucoup d'attention au niveau du gouvernement à travers des réformes et des actions phares. Pour soutenir cette vision, le gouvernement du Bénin a même dédié une université thématique pour les questions d'agriculture. Mais malgré cela, malgré tous ces efforts, les exploitations de grande taille sont encore faibles et essentiellement allouées aux cultures commerciales, pendant que les exploitations familiales de petite taille est orientée vers la polyculture. La production des denrées de base et des fruits et légumes pour couvrir les besoins de consommation entraîne une part importante des importations dans les stocks disponibles, et ce qui est accentué par la faiblesse des systèmes de distribution alimentaire, des faibles taux d'échanges commerciaux et l'explosion des populations au risque de maladies nutritionnelles chroniques. Le Bénin fait beaucoup de pas en ce qui concerne les produits de base, mais cependant, il demeure préoccupant à cause vraiment de cette poussée démographique. Pour ce qui concerne les défis auxquels les systèmes alimentaires au Bénin sont confrontés, ils sont en général liés aux principaux moteurs d'influence du système alimentaire au Bénin que sont l'explosion démographique et l'urbanisation, la gestion de la fertilité des terres arables et des ressources en eau, la variabilité et les changements climatiques, la faiblesse des mécanismes de coordination entre acteurs des systèmes centraux et décentralisés. Pour relever ces défis qui sont très importants, une attention devra pouvoir être accordée à la génération et à la diffusion d'innovations technologiques à travers une contribution soutenue de la recherche scientifique et le renforcement des capacités humaines pour générer des solutions innovantes. C'est le rôle des universités, et les universités devraient pouvoir être accompagnées dans leurs besoins de plateaux techniques pour mener des recherches nécessaires à la transformation de ces produits au niveau du secteur agricole. La situation actuelle de la formation universitaire et de la recherche au Bénin et leur impact sur le développement révèlent 3 éléments importants. Le premier, c'est la nécessité de pouvoir revoir tout le système de formation actuel qui est peu productif et qui ne permet pas nécessairement de faire face aux nouveaux défis des pays en développement. Il y a également la question de l'employabilité des jeunes sortis des universités qui se pose avec acuité. Au troisième point, c'est le défaut de financement durable de la recherche scientifique et de l'innovation, la faible valorisation des résultats de recherche et l'inexistence d'une orientation des programmes de recherche universitaire tenant compte de la politique de développement du pays, d'où un grand nombre de recherches qui sont effectuées et qui n'ont pas nécessairement un impact réel quant à la vie sociale. Heureusement que tous ces défis sont déjà pris en compte comme opportunités au niveau du gouvernement par des grandes réformes dans le secteur de l'éducation et de la recherche scientifique. Ces opportunités également majeures se présentent au niveau de l'environnement institutionnel et politique, régional et global, et les partenariats publics-privés favorables à la mise en œuvre de stratégies opérationnelles pour relever ces défis existent, heureusement. Pour ce qui concerne alors les messages clés, lorsque nous voyons ces défis et nous voyons l'environnement dans lequel interviennent les universités, leur volonté d'aller de l'avant, de pouvoir marquer donc le temps à travers des solutions innovantes, il y a quand même des messages clés que nous souhaiterions porter. Et ces messages clés se situent autour de 3 points. 1. Accroître durablement l'investissement dans la recherche universitaire sur les systèmes résilients et les régimes alimentaires sains et durables. 2. Subventionner l'entrepreneuriat agricole, notamment des jeunes. Ils deviennent de plus en plus nombreux et la question devient très importante, sinon nous allons vers une explosion sociale. 3. Développer une agriculture intelligente au climat et à la nutrition. Et à ce niveau, les questions de disponibilité des terres ces questions deviennent très préoccupantes, puisque la démographie, la poussée démographique amène les États à occuper des terres pour pouvoir donc faire des implantations. Il faut donc se pencher sur la disponibilité et la productivité de ces terres-là. Face à tout cela, nous recommandons au cours du prochain sommet mondial, le soutien aux universités et instituts de recherche pour un modèle de formation innovant orienté vers l'impact en mettant davantage l'accent sur la formation axée sur la pratique, par la création d'unités et de stations pratiques au sein des établissements de formation. Nous souhaiterions également le développement des entreprises partenaires des universités dans la formation professionnelle des diplômés. L'arrimage des programmes de recherche dans les laboratoires aux questions de recherche liées au développement des pays. L'investissement sur la construction d'infrastructures universitaires, l'équipement des laboratoires et la valorisation des résultats de recherche scientifique et des innovations. L'accompagnement des institutions de formation universitaire à caractère régional telles que le ReForum qui continue à accompagner les universités, nous souhaiterions donc cet accompagnement-là, que cet accompagnement soit porté au cours de ce forum, et c'est cela qui fournit des plateformes de mise en réseau, de mobilisation de ressources et de plaidoyer pour transformer les universités vers un développement durable inclusif. Honorables ministres, distingués orateurs, Monsieur le secrétaire exécutif de ReForum, Mesdames et Messieurs, telle se présente la déclaration du Bénin portée par le ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur et de la Recherche scientifique du Bénin. Merci.
Thank you so much, South Sudan, for the emerging key issues. And let me guide you, ministers or representatives, this way. You are given a maximum of 3 minutes. So get prepared to concentrate or to limit your presentation within 3 minutes to give chances to other countries. So we can now go to the next country.
South Sudan is ready, Sudan is ready, Cameroon is ready.
Yeah, please, Cameroon or Sudan?
Namibia is also ready.
Whoever is ready can be given the floor. The floor is open.
Can South Sudan come in?
Yes, please.
Okay. First, I want to observe all protocols, and because of time, I go straight to the report. As part of the process of Food System Summit, the EU and FAO, in collaboration with the government, are undertaking a rapid food systems assessment in South Sudan that will inform the National Food Systems Dialogue and hence the UN Food System Summit. National consultants were recruited by FAO to work with the convener and core team to carry out the assessment. While the rapid assessment is ongoing, the national dialogue is expected to take place at the end of June or beginning of July 2021. Several processes are currently ongoing, including technical meetings to familiarize the country food system team. The UN focal persons are engaging to contribute to the rapid food system assessment dialogue and summit. The rapid food system assessment consultants and the team are deep into the analysis. Other meetings and dialogues are now being streamlined towards the same objective of convening national food system dialogue, and the European Union continues to be an active member of the entire process. So our next steps: facilitate government line ministries and other partners to strongly contribute and support the rapid food systems assessment. The government, FAO, and EU are co-leaders of the food system assessment. The UN team to support and facilitate the food system initiative meetings and dialogues. So the next steps, May to July 2021, the rapid food system assessment findings and policy brief. Late June to July, national food systems dialogue. Then September 2021, the UN Food System Summit. End of report. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. And straight to the point. Wonderful. Now, let us go to Namibia. Namibia. If you're not ready, Cameroon.
Cameroon is available. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, dear ministers of the various countries participating to this very important meeting of ReForum. I wish I have a 5-page document, which I think, with your permission, I would like to forward to the Secretariat, if you don't mind. But I have a few key issues that I thought are important to raise at this level. Right now, I should say we have some indicators of the status of the food system within our country. We have the prevalence of undernourishment, which is a common issue within our continent. There is a prevalence of food insecurity, the prevalence of stunting in children under 5 years, a prevalence of overweight of young kids, and of course, the fact that there is overweight at the level of birth control. What I would like to insist upon, I don't know if you're getting me, is that Cameroon is taking every measure to ensure food security.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Am I? Okay, thank you, Excellency. Cameroon is taking every measure to meet the 2.1 SDG target, and amongst the few challenges that I will mention here, we have the low productivity rate, we have environmental degradation, and sometimes natural disasters that affect the environment. We have poor food consumption, and obviously we have the fact that there is the importation of foodstuff from outside. What I will raise as issues that the government is working on right now include curriculum development and revision. And we have the fact that technical education structures are being created at a higher education level that touch on agriculture and domains key to ReForum. And in terms of recommendations, is the fact that we recommend very strongly all the issues that the Vice Chancellor of the University of Bamenda raised already in her presentation, which represents Africa and most of what Cameroon stands for. We'd like to recommend the fact that a lot should be invested on research and training at the level of agriculture. But I want to use this opportunity, as my boss asked me to, the Minister of State, Minister of Higher Education of Cameroon, the Republic of Cameroon, asked me to thank ReForum very sincerely for all they're doing to support higher education systems within Cameroon, and that they should remain assured that Cameroon, through him, is engaged to respect and honor all the resolutions and recommendations that will come from that structure, understanding that the political will at the highest level of the Republic is involved in the ReForum process. process and decision-making structure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. As I said, I will forward my report again to the Secretariat.
Thank you so much, Cameroon. Next.
There's Sudan also. Sudan is available.
Please. Welcome, Sudan.
Yes.
Sudan.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All protocols observed, of course, for time limitation. I will just go straight forward to mention that the World Food Program is warning that about 21% of Sudan's 40 million population faces acute hunger and will need emergency assistance between June and September, this June and September. Also, the government of Sudan has carried a nutritional survey together with the Food and Agriculture Organization and World Food Program, which finds about 9.8 million people cannot feed themselves. And now to move straight to some of the main points. These are the shocking, of course, news, but we have good news that we have some opportunities like information exchange platforms. We have the joint research projects. We have some centers of excellence, and also we are suffering from brain drain and rapid inflation. This when you look at the threats that we are having. But still, the country is a vast country, and it has its extensive arable lands, it has its irrigation for water, and it has its human resources, beside all kinds of animals like the camels and cattle and all, and of course all crops like sorghum, wheat, bean, millet, groundnut, and sesame. All these are available, and there are many researches going on. The main problem, which I believe it is a problem for most of the people, is that we are having the absence of national strategic planning, which is very obvious when you look at some of the diagrams I have in my presentation, which shows that the low enrollment of students in Faculty of Agriculture for BA or BSc, and also for MA and PhD, which shows this is because of the absence of the national strategic planning. Now, other problems like weak infrastructure, like illiteracy, like weak mechanism for technology transfer, and this is really very important, especially for community colleges where we are taking good care of women. And what projects now we are having? We are having many projects going on, which we believe that can help in solving the problem. It's just like improving the quality and productivity of agriculture, development of production and increase of added value in agricultural and livestock sectors, establishing of factories for the production of biofertilizers and biopesticides, also the production and manufacture of fodders, improving of aquatic and wildlife production and development, establishment of the National Biobank for Genetic Conservation. All these are on the process, and many other research projects that are going on in the country. For this reason, I would like to say that the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research has sought to develop scientific research through its institutions by improving the quality of research through orientation of funded projects and the priority for integrated and harmonized research, again with creating research groups, research chairs, and also by financing young research projects. What I would like to say at the end that we need, what I have seen today and what I have listened to from many of the participants, that what we need to do is just to cooperate, to coordinate, to integrate all our efforts. Thank you very much, and I would like to thank also Professor Adibala for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next. Namibia. No, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Let me take this opportunity to recognize the protocol already established and to convey the apologies of the Honorable Minister, Honorable Kalesh Letvine, who was supposed to be attending this meeting, but unfortunately is on another mission. Moving back to the issue of the topic today, I should point out that in terms of the current status of food systems in the country, Namibia has been and continues to be a food insecure country. This is mainly because of the dryness of our climatic situation in which we find ourselves. And in that regard, as we speak now, about 400,000 people are food insecure in the northwest of our country, covering 3 regions or provinces, that is Kunene, Omsati, and the Rongo regions. And secondly, added to that, we also have a situation of people in the peri-urban areas because of migration from the rural areas to the urban areas in search of greener pastures, who happen not to have enough food to consume, and as such, the dietary consumption is also at a precarious stage. However, to address those issues, we are looking at various strategies. One is embarking on climate smart agriculture. The second one, we also look at focusing on issues of value chain development of commodities, starting from input supply up to consumption in a sustainable manner. However, even if we are addressing this, and then the third one is investment in agriculture, and then maximize research in the agricultural sector and the mechanization of agriculture. Unfortunately, despite all these efforts, there are still some challenges in the sense that over and above the low productivity of our soils and the dryness of our climatic conditions, we do have the resurgence of climate change problems that become more effective in terms of drought, floods, and also recently we have the scourge of the brown locusts that have been ravaging our pastures and also our crop fields, thus plunging some of the sectors of our society into food insecurity. However, as a way forward, we'll come together as the academia, the UN system, and the supporting development partners and government to come together to form a national coordinating team that is going to be coming up with all the documentation that's required for the summit. And this document team has established at national level a national technical committee, followed by, that will report to a committee of ministers chaired by my minister. And then in addition to that, we will be having a task team that will be feeding in terms of collecting of data, so that by end of the June this year, we should be having the documents ready that will be presented on behalf of the country to the summit by the head of state. So far, that's what we have done, and those are the steps we are going to be undertaking, but we're on course to ensure that we do contribute effectively and efficiently to this summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's like a wonderful presentation. Greetings to the minister.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you.
There is DRC. There is also Malawi. I think your counterpart from Malawi, and I believe there is also representation from Uganda. And then, of course, the EU.
A raised hand from Agnes.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening from Malawi.
Yeah, welcome.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes, so all protocols observed, and let me at the outset thank ReForum for organizing this meeting, and also let me also say at the outset that Malawi fully supports the statement made by the Vice Chancellor of Bamenda University, and we're fully on board supporting the UN Food Summit. I will not cover much of the status of the food security situation because my honorable colleague, the chair of the meeting, covered a fair bit of that at the opening of the meeting. Suffice to say that for Malawi, we have recently adopted our vision 2063, Malawi 2063, which is anchored on 3 pillars. As Malawians, we've come together under our president, with a strong belief that in order to achieve our aspirations as a country, which is to become an inclusively wealthy, self-reliant country by 2063, we are going to work on 3 pillars to take us there. Number 1 is agricultural productivity and commercialization. Number 2 is industrialization. And number 3 is urbanization. And this discussion today is focusing on pillar number 1 in our vision to take us to 2063, where we hope to be an upper middle income country. So Malawi is not spared from the effects of climate change and all that. And because Malawi's agriculture is largely rain-fed, we are highly vulnerable to all the impacts of the weather and what is happening to the climate. And what that means is that while in years such as right now, due to the policies that have been implemented, in particular, we have under the agriculture minister, supported heavily by our president and the whole cabinet, implemented successfully the affordable input program, which has led to a bumper yield. And as a result, Malawi is one of the few countries in Africa where hunger and malnutrition are reducing. But I would like to underline the word reducing, because if you take into account the fact that we're only reducing, we're not completely dealing with it, and also that we continue to be vulnerable to climate change, we as a country have isolated a number of areas under our Vision 2063, Malawi 2063, that we believe we're going to work on. And these include, we need to increase our agricultural productivity. We need to also commercialize, as I've said, and we need improved sustainability of land management practices in such a way that women, for example, and youth are not dispossessed. We also need just generally improved climate smart and resilient strategies. We need a lot of things that need to be done in the agriculture sector. Now, coming from education, as Minister of Education, my role is to make sure that the universities and research institutions are geared up to provide the knowledge and the skills needed to power Malawi through these strategies, such that at the moment, it's what we're doing in my ministry to make sure that we increase the capacity of the universities, we increase the capacity for research institutions to support the agriculture sector with specific knowledge in areas needed, but also projecting to where the agriculture is going. We need to be able to provide the highly skilled human resources. We need to provide the specific knowledge, for example, that will allow us to manage our depleted soils. So in short, what we're looking at in Malawi as the maybe twin strategies is, as we're strengthening agriculture, we're also looking to strengthen education, because here's the story of education in Malawi. Currently, we only educate 16% out of all kids that need to be in secondary school. Currently, our university intake is less than 1%. So as we look for investment in agriculture, as we look to support agriculture with the necessary skills, we also are looking for investment to boost education so that there's overall skills building and there's overall increase in secondary education, which can also help us to improve our higher education as well as technical education, where we're focusing on the entrepreneurial skills. So these are some of the areas that we're focusing on. But with ReForum support, we're seeing a lot of improvement already in our higher education sector, focusing on agriculture. And we intend to continue working with partners, both in country and out of the country. On that note, I thank you very much for the time. Thank you.
That is my counterpart, Honorable Agnes Nyaronje, Minister of Education, Malawi. Thank you so much for the support. The message is in as far as the food system is concerned, it goes beyond the Minister of Agriculture. There are other partners or stakeholders involved, like education. Thank you. Next.
DRC Congo.
Please.
Can you help DRC Congo?
DRC Congo.
Mohindo Nzangi.
Is he there, Okot, Otto?
Yes.
Merci beaucoup pour la parole. C'est Mohindo Nzangi, le ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur et universitaire de la République démocratique du Congo. Nous sommes très heureux de participer à ce forum pour l'alimentation. Et nous pouvons dire qu'en tant que République démocratique du Congo, nous nous sentons au centre de ces débats parce que nous disposons en Afrique des potentiels très élevés agricoles. Nous avons 80 millions d'hectares de terres arables, dont seulement 8 millions, donc 10%, sont exploités pour des exploitations agricoles, qui sont essentiellement des petits élevages et des petits agriculteurs. Notre pays, malheureusement, malgré ce potentiel, est en difficulté de pouvoir nourrir sa population. Et c'est pourquoi notre programme de gouvernement qui a été impulsé par le nouveau président Tshisekedi est de renforcer les capacités agricoles pour que notre pays puisse encore une fois revenir au centre de l'Afrique comme un moteur de développement agricole. Donc, comme je vous le disais là, nous avons une diversité de climats, nous avons une abondance de terres arables, et nous avons l'immensité des ressources hydriques qui peuvent nous permettre de pouvoir développer très rapidement notre pays par l'agriculture. Mais depuis trop longtemps, notre politique était axée sur les minéraux, puisque ça produit de l'argent facile. Maintenant, nous sommes en train de réorienter la politique du pays vers l'agriculture. Et c'est de là qu'en tant que ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur, je voudrais vous dire que le renforcement du capital humain, c'est la clé des changements de paradigme, puisque les systèmes que nous avons l'impression effectivement qu'au niveau rural, nous n'avons pas assez de personnes formées pour pouvoir prendre en charge cette question de l'alimentation de la population. Et donc, au niveau de notre secteur, nous allons renforcer les potentiels et les capacités des écoles et des instituts à vocation agricole. Et nous avons mis un accent particulier sur des instituts de technologie d'élevage des poissons et d'élevage du petit bétail, puisque nous avons compris que dans notre pays, l'essentiel de cette denrée est importé. Et donc, on veut que d'ici 5 ans, nous puissions être capables de changer les paradigmes. Nous voulons aussi mettre le focus sur les instituts qui forment le personnel dans l'industrialisation et la transformation des produits agricoles, et si renforcer les capacités du capital humain en général pour les aider à pouvoir faire face à cette question. Je voudrais, en finissant, souligner que notre pays fait face à des grandes crises majeures, notamment la catastrophe liée à l'éruption du volcan à Goma, à l'est du pays, le volcan Nyiragongo, qui a mis 1 million de personnes en déplacement au même moment. Et donc maintenant, nous avons un besoin urgent d'une assistance alimentaire pour les populations de l'est du pays. Nous faisons face aussi à l'activation du terrorisme, l'activisme des terroristes à l'est du pays, notamment la région de Beni et de Bunia, qui met aussi plus de 1 500 000 personnes sur les routes de déplacés. C'est ainsi qu'on profite aussi de ce forum pour relayer l'appel qui a été lancé par notre chef de l'État pour apporter de l'aide alimentaire à des populations de l'Est du pays qui font face à ces deux fléaux que je viens de vous citer. Encore une fois, je vous remercie pour avoir associé la RDC à la participation de ce forum. Merci beaucoup.
Good, thank you so much. I hope we can now go to Uganda.
Honorable Minister, there is, I think, a minister from Gambia Somalia, and then there's also representation from the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation from Uganda, Maxwell Otimo Napa. Maybe there are others. And then, of course, Dr. Leonard Misi from EU is still there.
I see. So Uganda, are you ready?
Uganda, Maxwell? What about the Honorable Minister Fabure?
So
maybe we hear from EU.
Okay, EU.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Lowe and Honorable Ministers from Agriculture, from Science, Technology and Higher Education. And it's a pleasure for me, representing DG International Partnerships of the European Commission, to be with you today. And I thank Dr. Adipala and the Rural Forum. I think what we're discussing today is very important. A number of interventions before me made reference to the rapid agri-food system assessment that we are undergoing in a number of your countries. We really would like that the European Union supports you in the transformation of food systems. As we know, this is a complex exercise, and the business as usual approach will not do the trick, especially in the post-COVID recovery context. Many of you know, especially from the Agriculture Minister side, that the EU and the AU and your ministries will be involved in a ministerial meeting in a few days' time on the 22nd of June, where we expect to go into a bit of deep dive in a number of the policy areas that you are discussing today. Areas around private investments, digital and digital transformation, pests and diseases, research and innovation, and regional integration. We would like to clearly give a signal that the EU is close to what you would like to do in terms of transformation. But today's event is very much on human capital. Transformation will not have the requisite and the challenging transformation that is necessary if it's not embedded with a strong human capital and a human touch aspect. From primary, secondary schools, vocational training centers, last and but not least, universities. And as European Union, throughout our support in the past years to many of your research centers and the agriculture research platforms, we would clearly want to be there with you from all areas, but it has to be in an interministerial spirit, because it's important, and I heard many interventions of previous ministers, the need to have a coordinated, holistic approach. Ministries of education, of higher research, with agriculture, but also in close collaboration with ministries of finance, because the challenges out there will be complex, but they are doable if we think and we transform the process in a smarter approach. And on human capital, I can't over insist on the need to give a clear signal to youth, because agriculture and agri-food is also a business opportunity. It's a business opportunity if it's done well, with the right tools, with the right mechanics, because it's also important that we give them the right science and technology baseline. As you know, the EU is supporting a process of EU Green Deal, of transformation around climate as part of our Paris commitments, also in view to support you in terms of your national determined contributions, but also to give the necessary approach on agroecology, but also on addressing regional disconnects within the continent. Because the big challenge for Africa, evidently, is to enhance intra-regional trade as part of the African Continental Free Trade Area. So, Honorable Minister and Ministers, we are there clearly to accompany you from areas on SPS issues, in terms of harmonization, research and innovation. You know as well that we are in the final stages of our programming for 21-2027, and in close collaboration across the continent, we really want to engage into a national dialogue, which is robust, which is systemic, which is holistic, but which puts also human capital at the core. 20% of our funding will go to human capital and human development. You can't have food systems without a strong skill base, and we hope that in the run-up to Rome, in the pre-summit, and to New York, we can give clear credence and clear recognition to the human capital dimension. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Renard. Is it Dr. Renard? Is it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, perspective from the European Union Commission. Wonderful. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Do we have members to give some presentations from the ministers or representatives? Another who is ready? Or can we go to the next item?
Honorable Minister, I suggest we go to the next item.
I see. Can we go to discussion? Or we have actually exhausted everything?
Perhaps we go to the next item of the draft communique.
All right. So, yes, agriculture of Malawi.
Thank you very much, the moderator, Your Excellencies, honorable ministers. I'll take you through the draft communique, and it reads, Ministerial Communique on strengthening food systems for improved productivity, inclusivity, and resilience. The UN Food Systems Summit under the theme Transforming Food Systems is crucial for delivering all the Sustainable Development Goals, and is scheduled to take place in October 2021. The UN Food Systems Summit 2021 advances a people-centered and based on human rights and social justice agenda. The summit is expected to launch bold new actions, solutions, and strategies to deliver progress in all 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, each of which relies on healthier, more sustainable, more equitable food systems. The COVID-19 pandemic was a wake-up call to the glaring fragility and inequalities of the global, regional, and national agri-food systems, making the resolve for sustainable, inclusive, and resilient food systems extremely urgent. To build sustainable, inclusive, and resilient food systems, there is need to examine existing systems and policies. Government leaders and policymakers, the private sector, civil society, universities, research institutions, and smallholder farmers and other value chain actors have a stake in shaping pathways for resilient and sustainable national food systems aligned with SDGs and Africa's Agenda 2063. Accordingly, the government of the Republic of Malawi hosted a ministerial dialogue towards the UN Food Systems Summit for selected member states. And these are the Benin, the Republic of Benin, the Republic of Liberia, the Republic of Cameroon, the Republic of Namibia, the Republic of Sudan, the Republic of South Sudan, the Republic of Somalia, the Gambia, the Republic of Uganda, the Republic of Namibia, the Republic of Malawi, and the Republic of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The event was also attended by African Union Commission, the European Union Commission, USDA Department of Agriculture, and the World Bank. Objectives of the Ministerial Food Systems Summit dialogue: number one, to provide a platform for agri-food stakeholders, agri-food sector stakeholders for dialogue to generate solutions and actions to inform the deliberation during the UN Food Systems Summit 2021. And number 2 is to explore engagement opportunities and chart a common pathway for strengthening Africa's food systems, considering the diversity of food systems on the continent. We, the ministers involved with different segments of African food systems, note that Africa is a home to nearly 1.4 billion, or about 17% of the world population. The vast majority of these people live in rural Africa, deriving their livelihoods from the land, basically agriculture and related resources. With 60% of Africa's population dependent on agriculture, clearly a vibrant agricultural sector must be part of the solution to create inclusive development in the continent. Also note that vibrant agri-food systems and institutions engaged in production to consumption of food are key to delivery of the continent's development agenda, Africa We Want, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And recognize that urbanization and modernization of the continent's food systems generates risks and opportunities and create the need to institute appropriate measures to be collectively addressed for sustainable and resilient food systems that meet Africa's food and nutritional needs. Acknowledge that Africa has to build human, financial, and infrastructure capacity to mitigate natural and man-made disasters, including pandemics, locusts, floods, droughts, and other climate change and related risks that contribute to the fragility of the agri-food systems. Note that the increasing appetite for Africa's arable land to produce for global food security is an important trend, and the potential threat posed by climate change to an already fragile agri-food systems call for measured agricultural development policy. Acknowledge the need to strengthen the link between university and government as a precursor for evidence-based decision-making and need for allocation of resources towards food and nutrition security. We further note that Africa produces its food from 2 main types of systems: smallholder-based, highly diversified production system, and progressive to extensive production systems that are increasingly owned and managed by urban elite. Note that it is the smallholder farmers that feed and employ the vast majority of Africans, with women accounting for up to 70% of the labor force. Note that the premise of Africa's smallholder agriculture to underpin sustainable and equitable food systems that support food and nutrition security for all, for the present generation and posterity, in an equitable and must be integral discussions on food on global food systems. Recognize that for Africa to realize its full agricultural potential to bolster its food systems, there is need for significant investments in food productivity, enhancing innovations to harness science solutions for growth. Recognize that only a fraction of smallholder farmers has requisite entrepreneurial ability, productive assets, and skills potential for value addition. Skilling such populations and in general improving the labor productivity is critical for African agriculture to play a greater role in meeting local to global food demand in a competitive and cost-effective and competitive manner. Recognize that there is need for an interdisciplinary focus on the factors that contribute to the fragility of the agri-food systems in Africa, including but limited to epidemics, emerging and re-emerging diseases. Recognize that a more holistic human capital development is required to build the agricultural workforce, from production to research and innovations as well as entrepreneurship. African universities are pivotal in the design and implementation of human capital development programs, and recognize the need to develop the outreach function of universities, which encompass extension and the link between universities and smallholder farmers. We, the ministers, are attending the strengthening food systems and for improved productivity, inclusivity, and resilience UNFSS dialogue are aware that current trends and transformations being observed in Africa's food systems are outcomes of policies and public investment patterns of prior decades, and not that the future will be shaped and transformed by today's investments and policy actions. We hereby agree to commit to strengthen production fundamentals such as research and innovation to direct how we leverage our production resources, generate relevant technologies, test, incubation, transfer the production of IPR of these technologies, guide health and climate-induced threat surveillance, and inform policy design and accountability. We also commit to institute industrial policies that promote private investment and job growth in local non-farm sectors is essential to attract investment in agri-food systems. We also commit to invest strongly in the education value chain from universities to vocational colleges to leveraging the secondary and primary education to upgrade the skill levels of young people entering the labor force. We also commit to work collaboratively with African universities and other actors in and outside Africa to marshal the needed response capacity to strengthen Africa's food systems and for scaling our best practices, including but not limited to increased value addition, reduction in high post-harvest losses, and preservation of nutrient content of indigenous African foods, crops, livestock, fish, and promotion of nutritional value and healthy benefits for addressing poverty and malnutrition. We also commit to foster global partnerships to develop more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient food systems that consider the needs of smallholder farmers and youth. We therefore agree to commit to pursue the requisite partnerships to operationalize the Strengthening Higher Agricultural Education in Africa initiative, strengthen youth skill development and entrepreneurship, and for building Africa's science, technology, and innovation capacity as encapsulated in the African Ministers' Communique of 5th December 2019 in Cape Coast, Ghana. We also commit to actively engage in the European Union-African Union Partnership on Food, Nutrition Security and Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, Africa-European Union Research and Innovation Partnership on Climate Change, Green Circular Economy and Sustainable Energy, Global Research Alliance on Agriculture Greenhouse Gases, and other continental and global initiatives. We endorse the statement by the Vice Chancellors of the UNFSS and commit to support a multi-stakeholder platform to strengthen capacity and knowledge generation and adoption. The capacity strengthening platform for African food systems will address issues of capacity generation, knowledge, and adoption of change technologies. The platform will include the universities, the public, private and civil sectors, producers and consumers to be inclusive of women and youth. And we also commit to implement the actions agreed upon during the UNFS 2021. We as ministers involved with different segments of Africa food systems appeal to the United Nations Food Systems Summit to recognize that Africa burgeoning market is an opportunity for agriculture and food systems transformation, but that changes, particularly poverty and malnutrition, especially among rural households. Primarily, smallholders in Africa remain high. Also support the efforts of Africa to invest in and transform its food systems and develop the capacity needed to develop, implement, and sustain a sustainable, inclusive food system. And also recognize that agriculture, food product development, and food accessibility need to be at the core of investment together with knowledge and technologies to energize the transformation. We also recognize that co-developing for ownership and joint implementation of UNFSS agreed game changers for food systems transformation on the continent must be inclusive and provide equitable opportunities. And also strengthen commitment to Africa's Agenda 2063, CISA 2024, and Africa Continental Free Trade Area AFCTA and urge the international community to support an African multi-stakeholder capacity strengthening platform for sustainable, inclusive African food systems capacity strengthening platform for African food systems. Thank you very much for your attention. I submit moderator. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you so much for the wonderful job. Now I would like to invite the moderator, Honorable Dr. Ita Anki Muhalang. Is it Muhalang, Minister for Higher Education, Training and Innovation from Namibia, for closing discussion.
Mr. Chair, kindly manage the closing discussions. And there's a honorable member, Amir Fabuen. I can't pronounce the name very properly. He has been raising his hand to be given a chance. Honorable Minister, manage the discussions and the closing.
I see. Yeah, you're welcome.
Honorable Minister, kindly invite for comments from the other ministers and other country representative. And there's Honorable Amir Fabure is putting his hand. I may not be pronouncing the name properly, Honorable Minister. Honorable Amir Fabure.
Yeah, invited. Proceed.
I think his network is not stable.
Hello. The floor is yours.
Minister Abure.
Minister Abure.
Perhaps you ask for comments from other ministers, country representatives.
Please, comments are over. Any comments?
Honorable ministers, please comment. There's a raised hand somewhere.
No hand?
No, it has been lowered.
Maybe people are now tired. So is the moderator on? Okay. Can I invite Professor Agnes Malata, Vice Chancellor, Malawi University for Science and Technology, for what was that?
Thank you very much. Honorable Robin Lowe, Minister of Agriculture, Government of Malawi, all government ministers that are here present, or their representatives, Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, allow me, on behalf of African universities, the ReForum Board, and the ReForum Network, to congratulate you all on a very successful dialogue. I must admit, I listened to all presentations and I'm very inspired. First, I wish to convey my appreciation to the convener, Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Malawi, all presenters and participants for bringing out not only the pertinent issues, but for giving us insights into the possible ways for strengthening food systems in Africa. We as universities were challenged to be active participants in the 2021 United Nations Food Systems Summit. It has been a process. It is still a process. But you can all agree with me that this process has been rewarding. I'm very happy that the issues that have emerged from the dialogue so far, coordinated by ReForum and this ministers' dialogue in particular, articulate the framework required to ensure that science, technology, innovation, entrepreneurship inform agri-food systems development in Africa. The United Nations Secretary General, in commissioning the Food Systems Summit, acknowledged that it is an opportunity to launch bold new actions to deliver progress on all 17 Sustainable Development Goals and deliver tangible and positive changes to the world's food systems with participation from key players from the world's science, business, policy, healthcare, and academia. I want to thank you for respecting this call and proposing bold actions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that increasingly the world is interconnected and interdependent, as we have noted in the dialogue today. I wish to thank you for the deliberations and for highlighting that universities have a strong role and that without them, agri-food systems development will be greatly compromised. As policymakers at the highest regional and national levels, it is my prayer that you articulate this appropriately. I sincerely hope that the ideas generated by the dialogue will be considered by the UN General Assembly and the Food Systems Summit in October. Finally, I want to congratulate Professor Adipara Ekwamu, Executive Secretary, and the team at the Secretariat for championing the regional dialogues and facilitating university participation in the Food Systems Summit at all levels. These honorable ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, demonstrates ReForum's convening power. As member universities, we are pleased to be part of this process and full participation of ReForum in the dialogues leading up to the summit. Let us not leave anyone behind. And I thank you all for participating and also thanking you all for your kind attention. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much. In conclusion, or finally, allow me to thank African ministers or their representatives, chairperson of ReForum Executive Secretary, vice chancellors or their representatives, all government officials. I would like to thank you for your time, commitment, and support. I appreciate your contributions. We had a very beautiful, fruitful discussion. I wish you well. It is my belief that as Africa, this is the right forum, right platform that can prepare us to have one voice in preparation for the September summit, UN summit. I wish you well. Thank you so much. God bless you.
My name is Alma Tari Romoropa, and I'm currently a master's student in research methods at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I grew up in Mutare in Zimbabwe. We are four in our family, and because of the current economic situation in Zimbabwe, We had a tough upbringing.
Despite early challenges, Alma achieved her honors in statistics at the University of Zimbabwe. At this juncture, her future for further studies was uncertain.
I received the ReForum grant in 2014, and I was so happy because I knew I could never afford to go and learn in a university outside of Zimbabwe.
Relocating to the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya, Alma is one of the many students crossing the African continent to study. The ReForum regional postgraduate programs emphasize new approaches to learning, more practical experience, and encourage mobility of staff and students.
Arriving in Kenya was exciting, and it was a chance to meet new people from different cultures and different nationalities, so it was very exciting for me.
Alma returned to Zimbabwe from Kenya to assist conservation agriculture researchers to assess the level of uptake of their innovations.
Where are we going? We're going to Lomboshawa, where I did my study. My research is in conservation agriculture, the technique that will increase soil fertility and boost maize yield while using minimum input costs.
We visit one of the farmers Alma worked with in assessing impact of conservation agriculture technologies.
My name is David Ndlovu. My name Ndlovu means elephant. I was born in 1938, October 12. I'll be 78 in October. Everything has changed dramatically. I mean, the environment here.
Mr. Ndlovu describes a changing climate to us, how the rains have become unpredictable, threatening his crops.
The reason why I decided to do this research was because I wanted to find out if farmers who are being trained in conservation agriculture, are they adopting the technique? And also I wanted to find out if this technique does solve the problem of low yields and soil degradation.
We started CA in 2012. It has helped us a lot. A lot. We get a lot of money, plus we eat. That's why we are strong.
For Alma, it's clear that despite unpredictable rainfall, conservation agriculture technologies developed with farmers are helping boost productivity.
My country, Zimbabwe, long back used to be the breadbasket for Africa. So for me, it was an opportunity to do something that would contribute to the agricultural sector, just people to have food security.
Alma and others in the Research Methods program are becoming research specialists who will, using an interdisciplinary approach, assist their colleagues to apply appropriate quantitative and qualitative statistical analysis to their research. They are also expected to train the next generation of biometricians to be much more applied in their approaches.
If I could say one thing to ReForum, it would be, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Can I just say thank you to everybody? We are very grateful. We will follow up on the recommendation and we'll share the communique with the different member states.